So I'll call the meeting to order at 6. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Anybody from the board? Anybody from the public? Anybody from the audience? No. Members of the public, you guys are here live. You get to go first. Nothing? Just came to say hi?
No, I just came to check in, see what's going on.
Okay, well, thank you for coming live. I can't see who's on the TV. Meredith is our recording secretary. Alan, Dana, Jesse, or Nicole, do you folks have anything for public? Or Beth?
This is Dana. No, sir. Thank you for checking.
Thank you, Dana. Alan, and Jesse, Nicole, and Beth. You guys all set? Folks all set?
All set. Thank you.
I'm good.
Jesse's okay.
Beth?
Do we have a last name for Jesse?
Oh, Jesse, can you also put your last name so we can get it? Meredith can have your information for the minutes.
And Tennille.
Tennille or Beth, are you folks all set?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've not gotten your.
Jesse, could you just give us your last name? Oh, thank you, Jesse.
Yes.
Hey, Rich, who's in the room there?
Who's in the room there?
Colleen Scalar and Amanda Georgeson.
Wow. What's going on the TV?
I have to get this ready for you guys.
Okay, can I go back so I can see what's going on,
Well, okay.
please?
There you go, Costa.
Okay, Stephanie,
Wasowski.
okay, I don't see your whole last name. Stephanie, are you all set, or did you have anything as members of the public?
I'm all set. Thank you, Rich.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Danielle said she was set. Everybody's all set. Good. And Meredith, you've got in the room, you've got the two that are in the room. We have a new recording secretary, too. I know. Well, it's not reading. I guess it did.
Okay, sorry. I missed my audio wasn't working. It is
Okay.
now, though. Who are the two in the room?
Could you each just introduce yourselves again?
Colleen Scalar.
Colleen?
Amanda Georgeson. Oh, sorry. That's okay.
Yep.
Great.
And Mark, we also have our superintendent, William Antone. We have our business guru, Lori. We have Matt, and Tammy was here and then she's gone, but I'm sure she's going to be back because it's her building. She can't go too far. So, members of the staff, I don't believe we have anybody, do we?
No.
And then old business, FY24 budget review, possible action. So, okay, Bill, now you can bring up your budget.
All right, we're going to see if we can get Lori to join on Zoom. And then that way.
Lori to join on Zoom. She's straight live.
Oh, you just said he sent it to me?
Yeah, Matt just sent you the link.
Yeah, just send you the link.
Well, there it is.
And then I'll make you co-host, and then you can project.
Okay, so you all got these in your email, and we have copies here, but they're not stapled.
Can we have copies?
You sure can, but hang on one second. Sorry.
So the delay is caused by Mr. Antone saying that he was going to have the copies, and Mr. Antone did not have the copies. So
Are you trying to get fired or something?
I am just trying to take accountability for the delay
Oh my gosh, I'm
in
so
a
confused.
transparent manner.
They're not collated.
Lori, are you going to fire Bill or are you going to let him stay till June?
I hope it stays till June.
There's no way Dr. Reed did this job.
Okay, this is a mess.
It's all right. I'm going to...
Because the other thing is I have trouble reading sideways on the screen.
This is page 2.
It didn't collate.
Okay, can you see that?
This is page 3.
There you go.
Not bad.
That'll do.
Oh yeah, this is I don't usually put page numbers on because they're so hard.
There's not a lot of extra room, is there?
I am not sharing the screen.
Not so much as that is
Thank you.
Page numbers never work quite the way you think. 4.
There we go.
3,
Is that good?
6, page 4 maybe? Page 4. Page 4.
This is more page 4.
No, these are out of order. I wouldn't staple them, maybe if you just put it in. Because they may have to redo.
Okay, while you guys are doing that, let's jump over to transportation request. So, is there Mark, did the transportation committee get to meet yet?
Nope, I sent another email to Travis just yesterday.
There's 2 more.
I never heard back from him.
Okay, he may have been a little busy cleaning up snow.
I never heard back from him from a couple weeks ago when I sent it to him. So anyway, I'll wait to hear from him because he needs to be involved in one of the decisions that we have to make.
Okay. Financials. So Lori, I don't think we need you for this. We have the financials that were sent out last week, and we have the financials here. Did everybody get a chance to look at them? Mark, you too? Okay. And Mark,
I got them.
okay, just speak up because I can't see you if you need to raise your hand, especially when we're sharing the screen. Is there any questions on the financials? Can I have the packet? If there's not, can I entertain a motion to approve the financials as submitted?
Do you have the numbers?
I do. So I wanted this. Should be right here. That number there.
All right, I make a,
Where'd my pen go? I stole my pen.
Oh, me. There you go.
all right. I make a motion to approve the financials at $222,856.47.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Kate and a second.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, Meredith, hang on. I'll always get back to you, and if I don't yell. So
Okay, thanks.
the motion was by Kate for 222,856.47.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion by Kate, a second by Laura. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 It appears to be a unanimous decision. It is a unanimous decision. Next thing we have down is BBA Response to Board's questions and non-sending town enrollment data for the last 5 years. So Bill, we had asked you to to check with BBA and get some information, and I believe you did.
Yes, I reached out to the headmaster, Marc S, and I've not heard back. So I do not have the answers for you all. I did send a follow-up email, and I will continue to do so and bring that data to the board when I get it.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I'm just curious as to what purpose it is for us to gather that information from them, given that it doesn't impact us, or are we just looking, I'd just like some clarity on that.
Okay, a board member asked, and we had a discussion about the what a sending town was versus a non-sending town, and then to see what how many people they didn't let in, and what was the advantage of being a sending town versus not being a sending town. And a board member asked for that information, so nobody objected to it, and so we asked our superintendent to reach out to Burnburt and find out.
Right, but my question is, what is that data going to do for us once we have it in hand?
I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly who requested that, but when it was
believe Laura did.
requested, I don't think there was any objection to asking for the data.
No, I asked the same question, but didn't really get an answer. I unfortunately was not in the room, was on Zoom for that meeting.
Can we just clarify from Bill exactly what you were looking for?
I was asking for 5 years of non-sending town enrollment data, and then asking how many students were denied enrollment from non-sending towns.
And I believe one of the things that Burton sells when they sign you up as a sending town is one of the perks is that, none of your students will ever be refused.
Right.
And I don't think it's a bad question because I don't know how long Dover's been a sending town. It's probably been over 10 years. And we asked that
Right.
10 years
I would
ago.
have it, with that, it's somewhat incomplete because not only the number of students that they may not have accepted coming out of that non-sending town, but how many students chose not to follow through with their acceptance and enroll because they were not able to cover the difference in tuition.
Yeah, so it's,
Well, I don't
So
know
we're
if they
gonna
would have
delve
that
into
data, but Bill, can you add that to your question when you follow up and see?
So essentially, we're looking for a non-sending town yield.
Hey, hang on one sec. Oh, what? Okay, Bill, did you understand his request?
If you could repeat it, I want to make sure.
Please.
So non-sending town yield percentages, so that being the number of students from a non-sending town that were admitted and those that chose to enroll.
Admitted, that's one number. Enrolled is another number.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
If I might,
Well, hang on a second, because I'm not...
Rich?
Yeah, hang on a second, Mark. Let me just get a quick clarification. I'm not sure what you're asking for.
So the yield percentage is the number of students that are enrolled versus the number of students that were admitted. So, for example, Yale, Harvard has an admission rate of about 11%, and they yield out of that 11% of applicants. So let's use round numbers. 1,000 students applied. They yielded 11, or they admitted 11%. So that puts you at 110. And out of that 110 that were admitted, they yield 90%. So 90% of the 110 actually showed up as freshmen the following year. Okay, so what that's going to show us is essentially, and it's not fully clear because we don't know the circumstances of each family, but it'll give us a better idea of potentially how many families were not able to cover the difference, because again, the non-sending town is provided with the state tuition. They cover the difference up to the full tuition of Burton. Okay, whereas we are given as a sending town, we are paying a little bit more than that state average tuition, but we are not required to cover the difference up and above, and we have the guaranteed acceptance of our students so long as they don't present with an IEP that is out of the scope based on behavioral elements.
And Burton doesn't have to bill all the separate families. They send one bill off, so there's some
Correct.
convenience to them.
Correct.
Okay, Mark, I'm going to let Laura go first because she had a question, and then we'll get to you. Go ahead, Laura.
no, my question's been answered.
Okay.
My question's been answered.
Mark.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify, shortly after our last meeting when we discussed this, the assistant headmaster of Burton testified to House Education Committee that they did not charge a different rate to non-sending towns as long as they were a choice town.
Okay.
Are you paraphrasing that or quoting that?
No, they have three tuition levels. Their sending town tuition, well, their tuition, whether it's a sending town or a non-sending town, but the non-sending town has to be a choice district. If they operate a high school, then they charge their full rate, which is, I don't know, it was like $4,000 more or something along those lines. But but you don't have to be, a non-sending town pays the same rate.
If they have choice.
Right, as long as there's choice in the town. Which is just different than the discussion that we had, I don't know, I guess that was about a month ago.
Okay, but our discussion, Bill, just to clarify, that was just what information we had received, or was that from a phone conversation?
That was an email.
It was an email, okay. So,
We were asking for further information.
Okay.
And that's what I was coming back with.
okay, so let's also...
My clarification wasn't in regards to what Chad had brought up. It was separate.
Okay, so I'm sorry, let's hold that thought for 1 minute, Mark. Is everybody okay with what Chad asked for, to ask our superintendent to get that information? Does anybody have any objections? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think
Or not
that's...
objections.
I think that's fine. And my understanding is, in addition to asking how many students were denied admittance, Chad would like to find out how many were admitted and then chose not to enroll.
Or couldn't enroll.
Which is, didn't enroll. So I don't think we're going to be doing family interviews on this, but...
I think that would violate FERPA pretty hard.
Probably pretty hard. So those would be 2 data points that we are asking, and maybe the second one will be easier to get a response to. Just in terms of intent for my first request, as per usual, when we come to town meeting and elect to pay more than we need to, which is every year, we often ask questions of Byrne Burton about their rates and their policies. It's not out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Since they are the kind of instigators of that. So,
Do you have a question in regard to Chad's or to what Mark was saying?
Look, Mark is-
Okay, let's stick with Chad's topic
I'm good.
for a minute. Is everybody okay with Chad's topic? Mark, you all set?
So I don't believe that getting that data you're going to be able to make the leap that those that didn't enroll were because they couldn't afford it.
Okay.
I have no objection to getting the data. I just don't
Okay.
think that's
Yeah, let's get the data and then see where it takes us. If that's okay with everybody. Nobody else has an issue with that? Okay. Mark, your second point, so your point was a different point. Your point was that what we got in the email tends to differ from what the assistant headmaster testified to in the House Ed Committee. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think we got an email about it. I thought that there were assumptions that were being made by us. But maybe there was an email. Either way, the assistant headmaster testified to a tuition structure that is different than we had left that meeting believing was the case.
Okay. Bill, you said that you got an email, correct?
I did.
Okay.
I'll package it, everything I've got, I'll feed it all back to you for the 20th. If I get a response back from the original question, the follow-up question, and the original email, I'll give you everything that I got in writing on the 20th, so you'll know where I stand on what I have received and whether it answers the questions you all were looking for.
Okay. So Mark, I got to give him a chance and I'll get to you. But Mark, so I'm not sure if testimony is transcribed or if it's how we get it, but I think you had a video version of it. So can you just send that to the entire board just so that they can see it? Because again, the question we asked Bill the question we requested our superintendent ask may be why there's a difference in answers. We may have asked, what's the difference between a sending town rate and a tuitioning town rate, which would be, that wouldn't open up the answer to get a non-tuitioning town rate. So let's just see what the question was. that I know,
It's hard to
So,
follow.
right,
I
so
know what we're
if-
talking about.
if you can,
I will package
Right.
everything that I've got, and I will bring it back to the
but I'm
board on
just
the
asking
20th.
Mark to send
Matt Kenny, the associate head of schools.
So,
Because he's saying that her testimony does not jibe with what is published with what I'm reading at the moment in live time, tuition fee and financial aid,
Yeah.
on their webpage, burburton.org.
hang on, don't get excited.
I'm not, I'm just reading.
That is correct. Her testimony does not match what's on the website.
All right.
So let's see the testimony, but I promised Dwight he could go next, so everybody hang on, and then Chad, I'm sorry, I'll get to
Yeah.
you, let's just,
Yeah, that was my question too, just if it's contrary. But just, Mark, if there was a letter that was included in the meeting material minutes or meeting materials that was from the headmaster that explained. So you might want to take a look at that and see if that's counter. If it is, we'll just get clarification with Bill on which one is accurate.
okay, so Bill, can you also look at the letter we got and clarify that too? Chad, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to know what I interjected with, and I apologize, Dwight, for stepping on toes. But again, I'll read verbatim. Tuition for the 2023-24 school year is $19,987 for sending town students and $22,487 for students who do not reside in a sending town. Those who do not reside in a sending town may want to consider these scholarship and financial aid options.
But it doesn't talk about non-tuitioning towns versus towns at tuition, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because that seems to be, I think, the third class that somebody came up with, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I was taking from your question, your request.
I don't know. It's all
Because as I understand, there are towns that will tuition students, but they are paying the state average.
unless they vote otherwise.
Unless they vote otherwise. So in that case, the families in those towns are required to make up the difference. So in round numbers, we're talking about 17.2. Laura, does that sound about right? So they're required to make up the additional $5,287 in rough figures.
Okay, so maybe the question needs to be, if there's a student that tuitions in from a tuitioning town, but the town's not a sending town, how many of those don't go? I think was that what you were looking for? How many don't
I'm not
go
looking for anything.
because?
It's pretty clear to me as well, but that's fine.
Go ahead,
Because Bill gave us the information we needed.
At the bottom of the email, the headmaster is more than willing to be invited to a meeting. Would that maybe be another thing that you would like to do?
Sure. Why don't you see if you can do that?
And then,
Yeah. I mean, I believe the headmaster was at the Dovertown meeting when we first voted for it. I don't know if he attended the Wardsboro meeting. Maybe you folks
It's not as
remember.
big as you guys, yeah.
I don't think he'd probably rather come to you guys because you're closer. Okay, so, yes, hang on a second. So, Bill, why don't you do the invitation for the next meeting?
I will do that.
And then we can let's just get this all together so that we know what we want to ask and what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
Mark?
There was no letter in the packet, information that I received from the headmaster.
Two meetings ago?
Two meetings ago, Mark.
Okay, that's different. Okay.
Time flies. 2 meetings ago. Maybe 3.
3 snowstorms ago.
Might have been-
Okay, hang on, Mark, are you all set?
Yeah, I will send the email out that I sent to you, to everybody.
Okay, go ahead, Laura.
So at the risk of further complicating this, I'm also on the Burn-Burton site. I think there are 3, I thought that there were 3 tuitions. One was for a town that has a high school or someone from another state or country that wants to go. Then for towns that don't operate schools, some are sending schools by vote
Sending
at their town meeting, otherwise known as member towns, I think. Maybe it's sending town. And then those who don't live in a sending town, which would also be schools that don't have choice. Or maybe the fact is that the tuition is the same for everyone, regardless as to whether or not you live in a town that has, so if you lived in Brattleboro and you have a high school, it would be $22,487. That was never my understanding, that towns that had a high school were paying the same rate as No, I don't think that makes sense.
No, it doesn't, because based on the choice, it would be the state average. You're choosing to go there, but you have to make the difference.
But
Same
no,
as if
but
we're
the
sending
tuition is
down.
the same, though.
we're say-
Wait, hang on. If you're from Brattleboro
Yeah.
and you want to go to Burton,
You're full boat.
you're full boat because Brattleboro's not paying anything
Nothing
towards
in it.
that.
They're paying nothing, yeah.
They
Yeah.
pay, right, Brattleboro doesn't have to pay any tuition towards that, so that's all on you. That's why I think there's 3 rates, but can I make a suggestion, folks?
What?
That if we have a live person from Burton sitting there, we can ask these questions, get live answers, and
Yeah.
I think it'll clear up a lot of confusion. Us looking at websites and trying to remember 2 meetings ago and then getting testimony, I think just makes it a little more difficult.
Because I was under the impression, just to add this, that of the 4 chartered institutions, and Laura, if you can help me, Burton, Lindenville, is it St. John Bella's free?
I got it right here.
Thetford Academy.
St. John's
Those
free.
4.
Burton, Linden, St. John's.
Those
Spring,
qualify for choice because they are chartered by the state.
Okay, we are in a different land right now
Yeah.
than the data request that we had. Can I finish asking my question?
Sure, but I think we can ask it.
Well,
when
it's a
they-
question I actually have of Chad, and so in the interest of just not letting information live out there that may not have a basis for it, and to make sure I understand the basis, Chad, you talked about the difference that a parent would have to make up that was not in a sending town being 5,000 something, and I'm not sure where I see that.
So based on what the average tuition of about 17,200. So if we are talking about tuitioning schools based on choice,
17,000.
right?
Yeah. Okay, so the average is not up there. So our students, we pay $2,500 more per student.
Correct.
Than the statewide average.
And so if we did not pay that, the families would have to pay $2,500 more.
No.
In theory.
No.
No,
Yes.
they would have to pay
Correct.
$5,000.
$5,000.
Right.
We would be in that full tuition category since we would not.
Incorrect.
If we voted down
That's not
the
right.
sending
That
town.
is right.
No, it's not right.
No.
Folks, hang on a second. Laura's asking the question, and
Yeah.
Chad's talking to her. So let's let Laura ask her question. So her question is, just ask the question and let Chad
Well,
answer it to what he says. But again, I think that by doing this, it doesn't matter what Chad says because he's not the one setting the rates. When we have the Burton lady in here, we can ask her, or the person, whoever comes in, then they can give us an answer.
Okay.
I just,
So, thank you. And rather than go back and forth on this, I'll ask Bill if he could please provide for the board also what the policy is when you live in a town that has choice for sending to an independent approved school, and what the tuition is. It doesn't fluctuate, I don't believe. I believe you pay the same tuition unless your town votes more, no matter where you go. Your town can vote to pay more, but it's the same, and it's that 17,000, I believe.
okay. Bill, hang on a second. We asked you originally, 3 questions, right? 3 or to get, so am I.
It's gonna be tough for me to answer anything live.
Okay, so
Yeah,
Meredith,
we've got a lot of stuff going on.
Meredith,
Yes, sir.
don't call me sir. I was never an officer.
What can I do for you?
Hey, so Dwight and Chad early on had some things that they wanted Bill to find out. Can you see in your notes what those requests were?
From this meeting or from a previous meeting?
No, from this meeting earlier. When we started this discussion, there was some more information that was requested. My recollection is that we.
Chad?
Yep. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just had that Chad wanted to find out about the yield percentage. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
And
Not Dwight, but Mark. You
what?
said-
And then
Okay.
Yeah.
Me.
I think that's pretty much it. They had. I mean, it was we were still finding out about the non-sending town enrollment data from the last 5 years. To find out, and that was something that Laura wanted from the previous meeting to find out how many students.
Attend.
Excuse me. And then, yeah, how many students refused from a non-sending town over the last 5 years?
Okay. So I think, Bill, the
Or
first.
refused,
So
sorry.
the first request that we want to have Bill let the representative who's going to be here know is that there's a request. How many students were not allowed to come in?
Yeah.
Is that correct, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, the second request from before was what are the different rates? What are the rates if you're a sending town versus what if you're a rate if you are a tuitioning town versus what are the rates if you are just from another school, another state, a town that has a public high school? Is that correct? That's what we wanted to note also. Laura just asked to know what is the difference a parent would be requested to make if a town is a tuitioning town, not an agreed sending town. What is the difference that the parents have to make up between the statewide average and what Burton's going to charge them? Is that also correct?
I believe the specific request is what is the policy? I think it might be what is the statute.
Which I'm looking up now.
Right.
Yeah, it might be helpful for the whole board to have that information.
I will provide as much as I possibly can for the 20th. I will invite a representative of Burton. One way or another, you'll have more information on the 20th that will be in writing for your structured conversation.
Okay.
So, and just for the purposes of having that be a productive conversation, it always feels like a good idea to me to say, what is the problem that we're trying to solve with all this data? So for me, the problem that I am trying to solve is making sure that I am well informed about the value of us electing to pay more for our students to go to the school, because those funds come out of what we either our taxpayer or our primary schools where we can't cut. So it feels like a due diligence and one that I do pretty annually. So the problem that I am trying to solve is to make sure I am well informed with data that helps me assess the value of that additional investment.
Okay, everybody hold on a second now. Chad, you all good?
Not particularly.
Well,
I think the question is wonderful, but the assessment of value based on acceptance or not acceptance dismisses what the school can offer to the students and the value of the
Chad,
education.
we're not having a debate on whether or not.
You asked if I was good, and I...
No, are you good with the request? Is there anything else that you want Bill to let this person know?
Well, no, because again, my first question was really what Laura had answered just in this moment, was what was the purpose of asking for that data?
Okay.
And my personal opinion is that we are asking Burton Academy to call together a group of data that's not going to essentially, effectively determine the value that we are getting for the additional money that our residents have voted to pay to be able to send our students without the liability of being denied. I think it's more the value based on what the school offers and what the students are able to retrieve from their experiences there.
Okay.
Just one thing for what Laura was saying. The chief said that pay more. Just be careful using the words pay more, obviously. I think when she refers to pay more, she means the additional cost over the statewide average. I believe that's what you're referring to, Laura. But pay more, it may not mean more for the district, because those students may go to a different school. They decide to go other places. We all know that Leland and Gray is the same cost. So I just want to clarify that. But I'm fine with the.
Let me be clearer about my words. Pay more than we have to.
The district, not people, just the district.
Pay more than we have to an independent school.
Well, yeah, but we have to pay what the electorate tells us.
That's
to pay.
Right. Understood.
Okay.
That's it.
And when we go to speak to the electorate, we should be able to speak to the value that paying more than we have to pay creates. And so I've asked for some data points so that I can be well informed.
Okay. You good, Kate?
I'm good. I have a lot to digest, and we have a lot to get through tonight, so let's keep it moving.
Mark, are you all set?
With the request, yes.
Okay. So, Bill, now are you as clear as mud?
I will be inviting a representative from the Burton Academy to come to our meeting on March 20th. I will be looking at the previous response from the email that was shared with the board 2 or 3 meetings ago. I will package that information with the continued request for the original and the second request, and then add the third request about the yield, package that all together and have it for the board, whatever information I have by the 20th, along with the request.
And if we're going to have a live representative, just let them know these are what we're interested in, and this is the point of discussion.
Yes.
Okay. Is everybody okay? Did I miss anybody? Okay. Lori, did we give you enough time?
Well,
Not really?
sorta.
All right,
Let's go for it.
I've made you a co-host.
You've made me a co-host.
We want to look at this one first?
So we want to look at the budget first. No, that's not it.
I'll go to Zoom, and then you're going to share your screen
Well, I know that, but I'm looking for my document
so that you can call it up.
so that I can call it. Hold on. I had it downloaded here, but it's not right now.
While Lori is doing that,
Here it is.
Chair, could you ask the phone number, if we could ask them to have their name there?
It's a 914 phone number.
Who's ever the 914 number, can you please type your name in instead of the phone number, or can you unmute yourself and give us your phone number? And I'm sorry, I see that there's a few more people. No, Peter and the phone number, right, are the two new ones?
And Katrina Cast as well.
Oh, Katrina, Peter, or the phone number. Did you folks have anything for members of the public?
I'm okay.
Katrina or 914?
Just listening in, trying to become a part of the community and just hearing what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. 914 person, can you please identify yourself? Or Tammy will kick you out. Maybe they're
But
lost.
they may be driving because they appear to be the only ones on the phone.
Can.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, sir. Is it a guy?
Rick Wasowski, I'm a resident of Wardsboro.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Can somebody,
You're welcome.
Tammy or Matt, just put his name on that? So,
I got it.
and then that way Meredith can have the spelling. So, Lori, go ahead. You're in charge now.
All right, I'm still trying to work this out here.
So you're talking about this page here, right, Lori?
Yes, we're going to start with that.
Okay. Does everybody in the audience have one? You guys want one? Okay.
Can everybody see this? I'm actually working off the live document. Yes, okay.
ELESOSDY, same as that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. So we haven't talked about budget for a little bit of time here. Basically, this is the same budget as draft 2 with the additions of the 3 positions that you approved at the last meeting. So
You did add those in.
I did add those in. So as you recall, draft 2 was like somewhere at about a 1% increase or something. So now we're a 4.43% increase. So working that down through the calculation, this is the summary report that we're on right here. The potential tax rate. So the unified tax rate, because of the high yield, right? If you look down at the yield is 16% more than it was last year. So this is because there was more money in the ed fund, so they made the yield higher. It's actually, your unified tax rate is 9 cents less than last year. Okay? But
because of the CLA.
So now we come down to the CLA, and the CLAs, drop dramatically, with Dover dropping almost 13% and 14% for Wardsboro. This is unprecedented, obviously. So just to give you some concept, right, of how much the yield is playing into the tax rate. If the yield was the same as last year, and you had that unified tax rate of $1.43, the difference is like 25 cents for Dover and 32 cents for. So it's playing a huge, huge role.
50%.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, and it's across the board. So every district we are talking about this. Very few districts across the state of Vermont didn't have a pretty significant drop in their CLA. So that is what's driving this higher tax rate, $1.82 for Dover.
We do budget first before we do tax rate. So
Okay.
we review the budget because we've always looked at budget to make sure we're doing an educationally sound
Okay.
budget.
Does
and then
anybody
come
have
back.
any questions on the budget itself? I sent it the other day.
So you increased how many full-time positions between the two buildings?
3.
Okay, and that's reflected in this budget?
It is reflected in this.
Okay, and though we haven't hired them yet, you're using an average of what
Yeah,
everybody's?
I'm just,
Okay.
I have some data on a psychologist, a counselor, rather, and then, the behavior interventionists, I'm just using like an average that I know about in the state, so.
Okay, so does that, Chad, you look like you have a question on the budget?
No, just following along for it.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions on anything in the budget? So you sent this out last week.
I sent it out Friday.
Yep. And
And this is, a very detailed line by line. You'll see, differences in staffing, and that could be a staffing change. It could, it also has the incorporated into it the negotiated, a projected negotiated income increase. It also has a 12% healthcare increase for those that haven't seen the budget before, just sort of running through the normal. And then anywhere that we could or that we needed to make inflationary adjustments, we did. Supplies, food services are up. Food is, as you know, when you go to the grocery store, pretty costly these days. So we've increased that as well. We don't know about universal meals as of yet. Maybe Laura has some more information? No, okay. So we're still waiting to hear. I did increase the food budget, though, because we can't count on it necessarily.
so, oh, good.
I mean, I would say what I'm hearing with it not having gone to the Senate and passed and been signed by the governor is a desire to take it off the top of the ed fund.
Yeah, I read some legislative update today about that.
So the ed fund now, it's different than it used to be, right? It receives all the sales taxes, so there's a lot more room for moving things around.
Well, that's good that things are costing more because then there's more sales tax to come in.
Yeah.
Lori?
I do think the boon in the ed fund, a lot of it does have to do with sales tax, and it has to do with COVID and people ordering more. And I think people have now just gotten into that habit. I'm not sure that we're going to see a $15, almost $16 per $1,000 yield forever. So that's concerning, right? So if that yield drops down to the average, which is 12, you can imagine what'll happen. But as far as the expenditure budget, that's what's included in that.
Okay, so staying on the expenditure budget.
That's why I brought it back around.
Thank you. So, does anybody at all have any questions on the budget before we ask the big ones?
I was just going to ask about with universal meals, if assuming that it may not happen again, that all the meals will be covered, and this is a tough projection, and maybe Tammy and Matt have something to add. Do we anticipate, if it weren't free, would less people take advantage of that opportunity and therefore actually reduce the amount that our meals, the amount of food service that we need to offer? Do you follow my train here?
I would say, like at Wardsboro, the numbers of children taking advantage of the free lunch has risen since it is free. So, I mean, based on that premise, possibly, I don't really know.
Matt?
I would say the same for Dover, that it's up. And there's not a huge difference between making 75 meals and 100 meals in terms of the preparation.
Pre-Matt and pre-Bill, the staff at Dover came to the board and wanted to feed the students before testing. And they felt that would make a big difference. And our test scores did go up. I think that we really, even if we didn't get a lot of money, I still think we should offer meals to as many students as we can, because you can't concentrate, you can't learn if you're hungry.
Agreed.
And the other thing is, I think that it's in the budget to cover it if we don't get any money. But if we get the money, then at school district meeting, we can ask that we can reduce that number, or it would just roll into a surplus, and we would have some more money towards the food the following year. So I think that's almost as important as anything else educationally in the budget. So I would not like to see that mess. But are you all set?
Yeah.
Mark, and then do you have something on his?
Yeah, I just wanted
Okay.
to just follow up on that. As a district, you could, if Universal meals does not happen statewide, as a district, you could become Provision 2, which is what West River is, and all the kids eat for free there as well. So it's another option.
Okay.
You could
But,
decide that.
We need to have, because it's not June or July or August, we need that money in there to allow us the flexibility to do what they're going to need to do.
Right.
No, Mark, and then you. Unless it's on this food thing.
It is.
Oh, Mark, is yours on food?
One of them is, and one of them isn't.
Okay, go ahead.
Laura, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Thanks. So just wanting to make sure that I understand what we're doing here. Lori, we're asking you to put money into the budget, our budget, that our taxpayers will fund directly and not if in fact the legislature renews the program, and if in fact they take it off the top of the education fund, it would impact our budget much differently and probably, right?
So I am budgeting just as though I did last year.
Okay.
Which is, there are a number of federal money that we get, state money, and then paid money.
Yeah.
Right? So the paid money has been covered this year by the universal meals. Right? So that's exactly how I budgeted for this year, for next year.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, so the question is whether or not paid the legislature approves
Right.
to come either out of our local budgets or requires to come out of our local budgets or approves to come off the top of the education fund. That's, yeah. Okay, great.
Mark.
So my first question was about becoming Provision 2, but it sounds like that's something that we can already do. So my other question is, Laura, you talked about using a projected increase in salaries. I'm wondering what percent increase you used.
Mark, we don't do a percentage. Lori has a number. It's part of the negotiation, so we'll talk about that in executive session.
So to semi-answer your question,
Well, here's a
it's not a
number.
percentage. It's a number that I put in under special items under the Board of Education. And that is held aside for negotiations, so that we're negotiating in good faith.
It used to be, we used to have a salary reserve line item, and then it didn't fit in the new program. But
this is the equivalent of that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
anybody else? Any audience? Public?
Peter,
Somebody's got a hand up. Go ahead. Who?
Peter McDonald.
Go ahead, Peter.
Back on the summary tab for a second. I just had a question on one of the abbreviations.
Okay.
Sure.
Down near the bottom, what are you calling CLA?
Common level of appraisal.
Hey, Peter, hold that thought too, because we're going to get back to that page in a minute, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. So I got to ask three people. So Matt and Tammy, in this budget, now I know you would really like the $200 toilet seats that the federal government used to buy for the military, but being they're always warm. Is that why they were $200? They were hot. My question to you folks is, does this have everything you feel that we're going to need to educate our students next year? We added the additional staff that you requested. Was there anything else that you kind of thought that you may want to see and you didn't ask for, or do you feel this is going to be a good budget? putting you on the hot seat. You don't have to look at Bill.
I feel like it's a good budget. I feel like it's well vetted. We work toward equity with it. Particularly the new staff will be extremely important going into next year. I feel good about it.
Bill. Oh, I'm sorry, Tammy.
I agree.
Okay. That was good. Bill.
I agree as well.
Is there anything, Bill, that you wanted to see in there that you pulled out for whatever reason?
No, I think we started with a really solid, sound budget that was building towards the future and the guiding principles of the board. And then I think you had two administrators come forth and say conditions on the ground have changed. We need very specific additional resources that the board was very supportive of providing, not only immediately, but also to be put in the budget for next year. I think combining those two processes make for a very solid budget to present to the voters that is understandable, it is defensible, and it is supportive of an environment that the six of you and your community has communicated to you that they would like to see.
Okay. Hey, somebody, can you mute yourself, please?
I got him.
Okay, we got you, buddy. So, if there's no questions, we've been told it's a sound budget. One of the things, yeah, who's that?
I do have another question.
Okay.
Can I go or?
Oh yeah, no, okay.
So I was going to ask kind of the corollary to what you just asked, Rich, which is, are there any areas in this budget that could be cut if we asked you to cut an X% and maintain a educationally sound budget?
I'll go first on that. I at this point would not make any recommendation to reduce the investment that has been presented to you based on the thorough work that has been done by your two administrators, been shepherded by your director of finance. I believe it is unbelievably thoughtful, and I think the conditions on the ground they change every year, and I think that your administrators go through a thorough process to present it to you. The fact remains that if you said to go ahead and cut, then we'd have to go through that process, but I would not recommend that.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was prudent to ask the question.
I don't think it's appropriate to put the building administrators on the spot on a question like that. So I will not, unless you folks want to answer something. The secondary tuitions students, the number of students you used, that was like we do in the past. We just base it on how many sixth graders we have this year and how many 12th graders, and then just assumed everything's going to be the same.
Yes.
Okay.
Moved everybody up.
Right.
And any changes that we knew about, there was a drop off in students, and we're seeing that in this year, which is why you're going to end with a surplus this year, most likely, which was in that packet as well.
Yeah, we're going to do that after this.
Yep. So yes, the answer.
Because we sometimes can play with that number a little bit too. Sometimes we've actually reduced that number less than we're expecting, because there may, if we're trending downwards, that will, because again, we pay the tax based on what we project, not what we actually spend. And once you've set the budget and you've sent the tax to north, you don't ever get it back.
Right.
So.
Very true.
If there's no other questions on the budget, would people feel comfortable approving the budget tonight? Not right this minute, but would they feel comfortable approving the budget?
I feel comfortable.
Yes.
Chad?
Yes, I would.
Laura?
Yeah.
Mark?
Yes.
Okay. So let's assume this budget now was passed. Okay, so now, Lori, let's go through your cover sheet. So you have the original, you have the numbers. You have our equalized pupils, which are down a little bit.
Right.
And then you have the yield, which is up a little bit, and the cost per pupil. Would we be in penalty box if there was still a penalty box?
Just barely, because the penalty was around 22.2. So, yeah. So you would.
A couple of years ago, we were big time in the penalty box.
Yes. Yeah, but that is on hiatus until fiscal year 29.
Right. So we've got a few years to worry about that. Okay. So. Income. You said some of our income is down. You're showing a 9%, almost 9.5% decrease in income. Can you just kind of run us through the income sheet and why you're projecting 9% less?
So, because you don't vote on revenues, as we know, right? Those are the numbers I'm getting for students tuitioning into River Valleys is been changing. So that actually might have been made up by now, and I have to check in with the administrative assistants because there was some fluctuation in those numbers. So it could be it's not 40,000. Yes. Like what they expected, who they expected to come in next year, and that type of thing. So that actually could be flat, which would drive your tax rate down about a penny. So it's insignificant. So I don't really want to speak to it because I'm not sure yet how that's. It won't
be till September, really.
No, I mean, we have to make some amount of projections, but, like I said, you're not voting on revenues. You're voting on the expenditures, so those can change.
So just because we have some new people I haven't seen before, at the school district meeting, we vote on a budget number. And then eventually that budget number is going to equate to a tax rate. But the tax rate doesn't get equated until sometime in June. So what happens is we say we want to spend $1, and the state of Vermont says, okay, and when the legislators leave and they've done all their voting, they say, we're going to give you 50 cents towards your education. You've got to raise the other 50 cents, and here. So we don't know, and what happens is the end of May, we file a report with the state, and then that generates our tax rate. So we're going to talk about tax rates, but they're not set in stone because they're not set. The legislature may say, hey, you know what, we found a big surplus in the swamp out back, and we're going to, give that to the ed fund or the swamp out back. The hill out back. That hill's full of gold. So anyways, when we talk these tax rates, these are what we're projecting as worst case scenario. But if all of a sudden there's a huge downturn, the legislature may say, hey, look, that yield was a little high. Let's make it a little bit lower. Or as Laura was saying, hey, we want to have all the schools have money for lunch. So they say, we're going to give you more money for lunch, but that's less money they have, so the yield has to go down. So it's a real balancing stone, and it gets a real balancing stone. It's a real balancing act. So please understand these numbers can change. Absolutely. So one of the things we do is we run a surplus. Dover's had a surplus ever since Act 60. Wardsboro's had a really nice surplus for the last 3 or 4 years. When we got together, that surplus came to us. Some of it got eaten up during the pandemic because we wound up with a lot more tuition students than we ever thought we would have, which caused us to spend more money. And you don't get paid from that first year because they don't count as a student until they've been in school for a year. So we pay for them for a year, but on the other end, if they leave after the pandemic, then we're getting that last year's worth of money, but we're not paying for it. So this year, we're projecting that on June 30th, we should have a surplus of, not an uncommitted surplus. So we do have surpluses set aside for transportation to buy school buses and for equipment and for buildings.
And if you turn to the fund balance, summary of major fund balance report. So these are the ending fund balances as of the end of February. So the general fund will change, but the general fund is where, if there is any surplus, will get added to the reserve fund, which is 2605. So that is, right now it's at 755,000. So potentially you could add another 200,000 to that at the end of the year. And so that's where some of those adjustments could be made at the end of the year when you go to set the tax rate. You could use some of that money, or you could transfer it to the capital buildings and transportation. That's been done in the past. So those are the two things that typically you've done.
So with this year's yield and with the tax rate and all the information that we have at hand now, which we know can change, how much does $100,000 buy down the unified tax rate?
Okay.
Roughly.
100,000. Right, so unified tax rate would drop from 143. Nope, that increased it, didn't it?
Uh-oh.
Went the wrong way. I'll do it under revenue.
Yeah, I was going to, just add 100K.
Yeah. I just had the calculation in there, so I
To
didn't
the
have to.
income?
Yeah, to revenue, right?
Yeah.
No, what's happening here? Is that 143 or was it 147? Maybe it was 147.
Yeah, it was 147. 'cause
Okay.
I
had in my head
The
143.
variance was 9 cents.
Yes, okay, so it increases or decreases it by 2 cents, basically.
Okay, so 50,000
So it's
buys it down.
Yeah, roughly 40 to 50,000 is buying it down a penny. That's about in there.
Okay, so to so the rates you're projecting. Last year was $1.67 and $1.79, and it went to $1.82 and $2.01. So it's a variance of 15 cents and 22 cents. So there's no way we're going to buy that rate, the full rate down, because that would be it would be
$750,000.
right, which would pretty much use up all the money that's there.
It would still be 7 cents increase for Woodsboro.
And we have to remember that it's a lot of this is based on the CLA, the common level of appraisal. And so as towns reappraise, their appraisals will, their CLA will come up. So you don't want to spend all your money for, a problem that happened because you had people moving in and buying houses for over market value. So
again, we're not going to decide tonight, but there will be an article, and we'll have this information at the school district meeting, and the voters get to decide. The board's never recommended to spend all the money because, we don't know what's going to happen next year. But we will make a recommendation, and in the past, we've done between $200,000 and $300,000, which would buy the rates down 4 to 5 cents. Plus, again, legislature may change. There may be some other adjustments we can make it at the meeting. So that's kind of where we're looking at. Go ahead.
There's a hand up from
Go
Peter
ahead.
McDonald.
Okay, so Peter, this is where we said you were all, your question could be answered.
So common level of appraisal, is that what you're asking, Peter? Yeah, so it's what the state uses to basically equalize the tax rate across the whole state for market value on your property. So if everybody was at 100%, right, that would mean that their property was valued at market value. So you can see what's happening here where people were buying houses above market value, which drives down the CLA. So it's really the tax department that does a study, an equalization study, and comes up with these numbers of how to raise enough taxes to across the state based on property value to cover what is needed for the ed fund.
Well, the CLA it's not. The common level of appraisals, there's an assessing group up in Montpelier, and they look at the town's grand list, what the town has it filed at, and then what they feel it should be filed at based on the sales. And that difference is how they make it up. There's some years you're over it, you're at 110%. Some years you're under it. This year we're all under it. we dropped quite a bit, and then the towns will reassess so that your value goes up. It doesn't really affect the town taxes because that just is within the town, but it will affect, the CLA affects how the money goes to the state. If you want, Peter, I got a really good article that was printed about 15 years ago about it, and we can give you that. And it's really confusing, and it drives people up a wall. And I know a lot of, just everybody, houses are, an asking price lately has been the starting bid price, and then it goes up from there. So that's caused this before. If the market changes around, then you'll see the CLA jump. Your tax rate goes down, but it should be about the same amount of money out of your pocket. Hang on. Peter, are you good?
I am. That explains why those numbers are what they are. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to go to Chad and then to Laura.
Okay. I think it should be said as well, Peter, just for additional clarity, that when the state recognizes that this variance gets beyond a certain percentage, it triggers an automatic reassessment in each town. So it's not our town that is saying we need to reassess so that we can bring those who have been in their homes for 6, 7, or 50 years up to the current market. It's the state that says you need to so we can level out across the entirety of the state.
Well, and they do it by changing the CLA. So even though your values are lower,
So when the assessors and the listers come through, don't blame them. They've been tasked to do the job by the state.
Laura.
Two things. First of all, I think Lori had a presentation a couple of years ago about how education funding works that may have included definitions of terms like the CLA and such. So maybe we could just get that resent and attached with our minutes.
Sure, and I think that might be something good to put in your annual report, those frequently asked questions, the terms.
I recall it was really well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is in
my first experience on the board.
the annual report?
Very well might have been.
And I would also note that the CLA, the shifts in the CLA prior to this housing run that we've been seeing for the last few years, kind of all over the state, they'd be, going in different directions. What we are seeing now is the entire state is facing this, and it's overwhelming the existing capacity to actually do statewide or to do townwide reappraisals, and the legislature is looking at how to provide resources at the state level on reappraisals, which is, also exciting, perhaps concerning to think about. But when we think about the capacity to do this, it's pretty challenging. And if we don't do it, we just keep. So anyway, it's a statewide problem, which I think means we may get some different, hopefully helpful tools.
85% is the number that triggers it, so both of these towns are triggered at this point. When they would be reappraised?
Well, I think Dover's still in theirs this year.
Are they?
They've had some meetings, and I think they hired somebody, but I can't recall. But that's not for us to worry about. That's a selectman's problem. That's right. So they took one thing away. Lori, real quick.
Yep.
Because we haven't talked about it, but we also, every year, we also fund our reserve funds, which is on another sheet that we started talking about.
Let me stop sharing and bring up that sheet.
So just so people know, another way that we've been able to kind of work out to not have huge tax increases is sometimes we will not fund the reserve funds from taxes, but we'll refund them from the reserves that we have, because then they're still in reserve, they're still cash to us, and they're usable if we need it. If we had 100 new high school students move in, we can borrow from that so that we don't have to borrow and pay other interest. Except right now, too, interest rates are getting much better. There's like CDs that you can buy that are like 4.5%. So it may be nice to have some money in the bank, but so we have we have the building and the vehicle, right?
Yes, let me, I'm pulling it up now.
So we'll have to fund those, or we may choose not to fund them and wait till next year and hope the CLAs get better and things mellow out.
Right, so in your packet, you have the capital building fund and the fleet management. We have the summary sheet to begin with, and then I think it's on the back side on yours. Basically, Greg Frost and I worked together on this and determined what is, needed for each. So this is the capital here that just has the detail of what's being spent in what year. And so then the summary brings that over, and we started with for fiscal year 23, which is the year we're in right now, the fiscal year we're in, started with a reserve balance of $211,000. You voted, or you had the public vote last year to take $70,000 out of your reserve account and move it over to capital here. So that's been added in there. But then we've had some capital expenditures that will be happening, so that decreases it. So your ending fund balance reserve would be 150. So looking out, right, so we're looking out, many, many years here, and I think last year the recommendation was 70,000, but you can clearly see we need to increase that. So we increased it to 100,000. There's a roof that needs to be done. So those are all things, big expenses that'll be coming, and you can see even at 100,000 for the next 3 years, you're still in fiscal year 26 getting, fairly low there with 67,000. So, I think that may be when the roof is being done, over 2 years maybe. 2030 is when the roof is being done. So it gets down to 73 in that year. So Greg, Director of Operations, and I met about this and said we need to increase our recommendation from 70 to 100 for that. And then this year under fleet management, $20,000 is in there for fiscal year 23, right? You asked the voters for $20,000 for fleet management. There's also a new bus on order, which should be coming soon. Is it not here yet? May, okay. So that shows you what the new bus was, $106,000, so gets it down to $23,000 in there. So we are recommending $75,000 to be added. So between the two accounts, $175,000 was our recommendation for the longevity of these funds.
But that also has a $45,000 tractor.
It does.
That we just put a lot of money into, and we may be able to kick that down the road 3 or 4 years.
A couple, at least two.
And then that way we, again, we're in a tough year, so that may not get. But again, the voters, that's something we're going to propose. There'll be discussion, and that's what happens at a live meeting is people can say, you know what, let's not spend the $45,000, and we can maybe bring this down for a couple years and refigure it. Remember that you're only voting for this expenditure for this 1 year, even though we carry it out for a lot of years, just so you can see why we're asking for it. And we're also projecting expenses, but we also just don't spend the money because it's in there. So if it says that we need a new roof and they say, hey, you can get 2 or 3 more years out of your roof, we'll push that off so that the money can build a little interest. And if something else comes up, like we thought the furnace was going to last for 3 more years and it only went 1 more year, there is some changes. But we always review this, and we always ask for the money to be expended, and we also ask for the money to be moved in.
Right. In fiscal year 24, the majority of that is the gym floor. That's coming up.
Which was like 20,000 years ago. Got their hand in it.
Peter, I've got a couple of questions.
Okay, Mark, go ahead, and then Peter, we'll get to you.
So before we get to the point of making recommendations to put on the warning for the annual meeting, I'd like to get an update from Greg on where our buildings stand in the PCB testing, because I think they're supposed to be done around this time period, if I remember correctly. So I'd like to know that so we can have some idea whether we may need to be putting more in. Also, in regards to the
Mark, hang on the piece. So, Bill, you'll have that for us for next meeting?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
In regards to bus number 2, that's only a year younger. Do we really want to wait to 26 or 27 to get a replacement, or should we be moving that up?
So let's ask that question too and let's ask the tractor of Greg too.
Tractor and bus 2.
Yeah, so those 3 things. Mark, is that good?
Yeah, and I just want to say that I said this last year, and I'll say it again this year. My preference would be to move more of our reserve into more of the general reserve into these 2 reserve funds than to buy down the tax rate, because I think this money is going to be needed.
Yeah, and again, that's why in a live meeting that those numbers can be changed by an amendment on the floor. Can even come from the board. 8 board member. Board member can make a motion to amend an article. Peter, Mark, are you all set? I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Peter, go ahead. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Who's doing the heavy lifting on these projections? Are we doing this ourselves, or do we have an engineering firm look at our reserves and our assets to figure out when we're going to need money?
No, when we first combined, when we first became the River Valleys, we did hire an engineering firm to do a reserve study for us, and we've used some of that information, but we've adjusted the numbers, and then we have our financial gurus at central office review them, and we're using past experiences at other schools in the district to come up with the numbers. Again, if you've been to the Dover Town meeting in the last 25 years, I always say that if I could predict what's going to happen a year and a half out, I sure wouldn't be here. I'd be playing the futures market and being a multimillionaire. So, it's a best guess scenario. We don't know what things are going to cost.
No, which I appreciate, and although I usually don't agree with Mark, I do agree that putting money here instead of paying down the tax rate is prudent, and these reserves are really light.
Yeah, but believe me, they're a lot better than a lot of other places and a lot of other schools that I know of, especially in our district. So it's yeah. And the other thing is there's a whole group of people that believe there shouldn't be any reserves, because why should I pay for something 10 years down the road when I may not be here? So I appreciate your comment, but believe me, it's we've heard them go in all different ways, and it's lively discussion. So I really hope to see you on April 28th, 25th this year in Wardsboro, inside the building.
Watch what you ask for.
No, please come. Thank you, Peter. Is that it?
Yep, that's it for now.
Okay. Are we pretty budgeted? Go ahead, Dwayne.
I just wanted to, I'm done with all this. You made a good point about interest rates, Rich. I know that the local banks are offering as much as 3% just for a money market account. Are the accounts in any interest bearing that are at the moment, or can they be moved?
Yes, the general fund has a sweep account, so that has a higher interest rate. I have talked to our banker at M&T now about potential short-term treasury bills and that type of thing, CDs, short-term CDs, right? But I like to get through budget season to make sure that there's a solid amount and that you're not making decisions that I'm not making decisions with your money.
That's right. I wouldn't suggest a CD just because the money market accounts are even quite good, right? Even for the local bank.
Well, CDs are fine if it's long-range money. But are we insured? I thought we were only insured for $250,000. So.
FDIC, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't have more than 250 in any one bank, do we?
Yeah. It's the sweep account is. There's also collateral that it covers it we have to look at our investment policy. So Wyndham Central has an investment policy that may cover all the districts, and we haven't looked at it, for a long time. I think the last time was maybe 2011, because there hasn't been any money to invest, or the interest rates have been horrible. So actually, it's something I printed out the other day, and I need to go through it and see what options we have with that policy.
So, Bill, on a separate topic, if that's an investment policy, then maybe that's a really good charge for the Wyndham Central Policy Committee.
I was about to ask Lori if she could send me that document.
I sure will.
Thank you.
Perfect.
You also, sir? So, if everybody's good, would anybody feel comfortable making a motion to approve a budget to be presented to the electorate?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the FY24 budget for the amount of $6,532,635.00 to bring forward to our towns at the school district meeting.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, Dwight, second.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, hang on a second. Kate made a motion to bring forth a budget in the amount of $6,532,635 to the electorate at our school district meeting, and Dwight seconded the motion. Are you good with that, Meredith?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Discussion, Kate. Dwight?
I think we've really done a thorough review. I think the team has put together a really good budget. I think they've been very thoughtful with it and very intentional with how they're putting the numbers forth. And so I'm ready to move forward with it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a 4.4% increase in the times we live in, and considering the fact that we added 3 new positions, that sounds great to me.
It's way under inflation, isn't it?
As far as we know.
Anybody else? Any comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, Rich.
Oh, Mark, I'm sorry. Without you being here, I've got Laura, and then you.
That's fine.
Thank you to our admin team and Lori and Bill for doing such a great job with this. It is, considering the challenges, the increasing challenges that you all are seeing to put forth a budget like this is pretty great. So thank you. And meet the challenges. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mark.
So rather than repeat what other people have said, I will just say ditto. But I do have a question. We had talked probably 3 or 4 months ago now, maybe even longer, about the possibility of looking at a capital investment for outdoor learning space. And I understand that's not operational budget. I just want to make sure that doesn't get completely lost in the scheme of things, and we do come to that at some point to have that discussion.
Meredith, can you make sure that shows in the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, Bill, it's kind of, I feel sad because for 14 years we've worked on budgets, and this is our last one. So, but I'm glad that we got Lori on board, and that Lori I feel does a great job. And Lori, thank you for all the hard work you put into this. And if there's no other discussion, are you all ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is a unanimous decision. You all are presenting a budget of $6,532,635 on April 25th at the Wardsboro Town Hall. Be there or be square, and not a square dance. Okay. we have, I believe, covered all old business. Is there anything else that I missed under old business? So next meeting, I will have a proposed, and I'll get it out early, a proposed agenda for the annual meeting. And Lori, I'll talk to you real quick. You're going to give this so we can get the booklet set up. Can you make sure for the next meeting we have that CLA thing?
Yes, the frequently asked questions.
Yeah,
the
and
terms.
then I think we just Mark or you guys wrote your letters, not Mark. Matt and Tammy, your letters are all in. I just need to do now one for us. And then what else do you need for the annual report?
I work with Liz on it. I think she's the one doing it, I believe, this year as well. And so we'll get all of the same information.
Because I'd love to have a mock-up of it just so the board can see next, because I think the lines were a little funky last time, and we want to make sure that there's numbers on the side so that if somebody asks a question on the budget, we have
Oh, okay. You'd like the column and row headings.
On the row you had on the far left, like 1 through 300 or however many lines there are.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of asking for the number on the page, we could flip through our stuff. So let's make sure that's there. If anybody else has any suggestions or comments about the report, let's make sure we kind of put that to bed at our next meeting, okay?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you, Lori. Are you all set? There's nothing else for you, right?
I don't know.
I don't think so. Bill, she's all set to go, right?
Lori is definitely set to go. Thank you.
With all of my papers.
Well, I did not set her up for success, but you navigated it beautifully.
Bill's just giving you one last walk.
You know, I'm a planner, right? So
You did a very...
he's making me grow, to be flexible.
There is no growth without disequilibrium.
That's you did it tonight, that's for sure.
Thank you. So Matt and Tammy, under new business, we have principals report, benchmark assessments updates.
All right.
All right, we shared our presentation with Bill, which we shared with all of you at the last meeting. I think he's going to pull it up.
I am. Okay. And let me put it in.
Hey, if you all want to come up here.
Or I'll go over here.
I can see.
You guys are okay?
Being the way it presents.
We'll go slideshow.
Note the new logo.
Right? Okay.
So we put together a slideshow presentation for all of you based on the local common assessment system, which is for students in grades. It's developed by our curriculum coordinator, but it's for students in grades K all the way up to 12, but we will be reporting obviously on our K-6 students. So students are assessed 3 times a year: fall, winter, and spring. And the main, if you go to the next slide.
I'm trying, man.
No? The main benchmark assessments that we are reporting out on, well, tonight is Ames Web Plus, but students are also in grades K to 3 are also assessed primarily on, so the Ames Web Plus, as well as the predictive assessment of reading, which is known as the PAR. So the Ames Web Plus assesses both literacy and math skills, where the PAR is a predictive assessment for reading. And those, they're basically, they're both screeners. They're kind of a dipstick to tell us where students are performing at grade level. The purpose of the assessments is to diagnose any skill gaps that students might have, and if so, other diagnostic assessments are prescribed to target where instruction should begin and start to fill the deficits. It's kind of like going to the doctor to seeing, if you have an ailment, what are they going to diagnose for you? They're also used to see if there's any patterns or trends with groups of students in an effort to evaluate the effectiveness of core instruction and if that needs to be built up in any way.
So
we talked a little bit about these tiers, and you've seen some graphs before about the tiers. You're fine there. Essentially what we're looking at is what we call a risk tier, or at what point are students at risk of not making grade level by the end of the year. So that's what we're looking at when we're looking at this in the long term. So tier 1 indicates that there's a low risk that a student will not make grade level by the end of the year. So we coded that green so that it's kind of the thing we want to see go up. That's the line we want to see rise. Moderate risk are students who are at moderate risk of not meeting the end of the year target. These will be indicated by yellow lines on the graphs that you see. And they will require, students in the yellow group will require some type of intervention. So teachers work with the academic support team to look at the data, and sometimes they have to prioritize what intervention areas are most necessary to work on, and then they develop an individual plan to address those very specific skills. You address the skill, and then you monitor the progress on that skill, and you determine whether you need to continue work in that direction or establish a new direction, try something else if what you're doing is not working, or maybe check it off and go on to the next skill set that needs to be addressed. And then tier 3 is our highest risk. These are students who are at high risk of not meeting end of the year target, typically well below grade level and require much more intensive and individualized interventions. That's going to be indicated by the red line in the graphs that you see. And that red line, we want to see that go down from term to term. Obviously, we want the number of students in that group to be reduced.
So here is our winter, or fall to winter graph for Wardsboro in early literacy and reading. And as you can see, again, like Matt said, the green is the tier 1. So we had a little bit of a decrease in our students performing at the tier 1 level, which is the opposite of really kind of what we want to see. We went from the 61% to the 50%. The tier 2 students, it's a little wonky on the graph, but that's indicated by the orange or yellow line, and that actually increased a little bit. So we went from 15% up to 32%, and we'd really like to see that line more decrease. The best news from this graph is that our tier 3 students did drop a little bit from 24% to 18%. Just a couple of things to note is that from the fall to reading for Wardsboro, it's not an apples to apples as our testing sample changed slightly. Also, it's one snapshot in time, right? It's one day. So depending upon, how students might be feeling that day or, what might be going on for them, it's just one point in time. And also, because our sample is so small, the numbers can change drastically. 1 or 2 students could really, shift those numbers. As far as literacy goes, some patterns that we've been seeing in Wardsboro is that school-wide fluency rates, which is the rate at which students read, is a concern. And this is actually, this was the area that really brought some of those scores down for us. So that's something that we've been addressing within our instruction. Reading comprehension, although it's not indicated in here, has improved, but it's not represented in the data. And let's move on to math, I guess. So here's our math. This is more of a typical graph that you'd like to see. Our students are performing higher in the area of math based on this data set. So again, the tier 1 for math is indicated in the green, and that went from 59%, and it's off the chart here. It rose all the way up to 80% of students that would not be at risk for not meeting grade expectations. The yellow line got really mixed in with this red line here, but that went down, which is again what we would like to see. That went decreased from 22% to 9%, and then the tier 3 students decreased from 20% down to 11%. So that's good news. And again, one thing to note, similar to the literacy scores, is that the fluency again it seems to be a school-wide concern for us. But overall, that math is, the results from this data point or these sets seems overall stronger than the literacy piece, which is kind of unusual for Wardsboro. Usually it's the opposite, so that's a little curious for us.
Tammy, are these specific grades, specific classes?
So this is whole school. It's K to 6. Want to move on to
Any questions? No?
Mark? Anybody on TV?
Yeah. I have a bunch of questions, but I'll save it till the end.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on TV land? Folks out there?
Looks great.
Okay. Rock and roll.
All right. Well, this group, this data that you're looking at now is Dover. This is Ames Web Plus reading and literacy results. You can see the tier 1 is the green line, went from 43 to 55. The tier 2, which is the yellow line, went from 17 to 14. And the tier 3, the high risk group, went from 40 to 31. So this would indicate progress, forward progress. Hard to tell sometimes with the yellow line, are the reds shifting to yellow? So it's a little hard to tell. And once again, this product doesn't provide us with school-wide reports, so we have to create them. Right. It's a little wonky. It's not as slick as I'd like it to be, but that's what's going on there. You can go ahead and flip on to math. So similar except the bottom two are a little different, but math moved from 57 to 69%, which is positive. That looks good. But like in the Wardsboro graph, that the Wardsboro math numbers went to half, 20 to 11. The red group went from 29% to 7%, which is a significant change, reduction, which is good. And then some of those reds may have moved to yellow. Hard to know for sure, but that's what's going on here. So this is indicating, this is hopeful for math as well for Dover students. We also had similar concerns specifically to Wardsboro, and it's actually all of the Wyndham Central schools. And in fact, I think it's a national event that reading fluency remains a high priority for I would imagine most schools. The district is involved in significant study of reading acquisition and learning to read, and has been putting a lot of resources into helping our teachers become better reading teachers using the science of reading and contemporary methods. And it's actually kind of fun in a nerdy kind of way. Would love to talk for a long time about it, but
we're jazzed about it because we went through PD today. So. And in terms of math for Dover students, as you may know, we are piloting a new math program at Dover. So it's going to take, we expect 3 to 5 years to really see the results. And it's a little hard to tell here because you're not separating out by grades, you're just looking at the whole school. But there have been indicators of our grades that have piloted the program, that it's working well. And we do look forward to seeing what the next couple of years sticking with that program and expanding it will show us. So it's kind of exciting too.
I'll wait till the end.
Yeah.
And
that's
at
it.
the end.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Mark, go ahead. You had some questions. You said you'd hold till the end, and then we'll get Laura and then anybody else.
Thanks, Rich. So, first of all, really cool logo.
Glad you like it.
I'll work my way backwards. Math program. Do me a favor, just because I'm drawing up money. What was the name of that program that you guys were starting?
It's called Bridges Classroom.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think I had written this in an email to you, but maybe I didn't. Is it possible for us to get longitudinal charts over time of these, year to year to year?
Yes, and I'm not sure if I wrote back to you or not, Mark. The product at the moment does not, as far as I know, allow us to create longitudinal data. Although we have some stored. Wardsboro started a couple of years ago, right, doing the same chart that I had been doing in Dover. So I have 3 or 4 years of this skill data, but it's really specific to the grades. but I do have a little bit, Mark. There's no canned report, unfortunately. We'd have to do it all by hand at this point.
So the data, and you did respond to me with that, so I apologize that I didn't remember that. The data that you presented today is school-wide. So I think that is the data that I'd like to see charted over time, less so than grade to grade, although I understand that it's specific to the students in the school at the time. I think I'd like to see the overall school numbers over time. I had a question about the local area assessments in general. Do we get results from schools that we are tuitioning out to for our students to know how they are doing over time?
Good question.
We do not get a regular annual report of that, no. We can request it, but the kids move. They're in a variety of places. I think we have 17 different schools we pay tuition to.
Jesus.
But there is not a uniform reporting mechanism that would be easily digestible in a longitudinal manner at this time.
I mean, that's something that we've always discussed as a board ever since I've been on the board, is that once our students leave 6th grade, we don't know how they're doing. You know, we get some anecdotal stuff. I mean, Brattleboro and Leland Gray used to brag about Dover students because they loved them, and but we don't know what happens to our students. We don't even really, we can't track where they go, and all we could do is really get the school's data. They couldn't cut it out to just the Dover students and the Wardsboro students. So unfortunately, that was one of the things when we talked about doing the banner, the graduation banners, that we would ask that we'll do a banner for your child, but answer these several questions. What school did they go to? Did they enjoy it? What did they take away from it? But that is something that, Mark, we really do lose because there's no way for us to track it. We can't track students because that's not allowed. So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we would be able to report out on that anyway because of the population sizes would be so small.
It would have to be greater than 11.
Right.
And it would have to be a cohort.
Yeah.
It would be
17.
It would have to be the same assessment. So each school would do, the only common assessment is the SBAC or the equivalent. And you'd still have to have greater than 11 in the pod that is taking it. So it's a challenging ask.
So I know that House Ed is working on a bill right now to make this more of a requirement, reporting back to the tuitioning districts. But my concern is that schools that we tuition to can charge back our sped costs. And if we can receive that data, I understand right now it can't, and there are challenges, et cetera, but if we can receive that data, then not us, the board, you guys, the administration, may be able to catch things early that aren't being caught by the school that they are attending. So that was sort of my thinking along those lines.
How would we act on that information?
Hang on. Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but especially if it's a special issue, if there's going to be an IEP, and that's going to catch all that anyways.
That'd be a different bucket. I think what Mark is talking about is, imagine you have 7 kids that are in 7th grade at MEMS, that if the data was able to be provided to, I guess, the 3 of us, that we would then meet with the principal of MEMS saying, how are those 7 kids being treated versus the other 184 kids? And it's logistically challenging to imagine how that would play itself out.
And the other part of it is we have no say where a parent sends their child.
Exactly.
So even if we saw that there was a school that wasn't performing as well with our students, right, what can we do about it?
Why are you worried about that? It's over.
No, I think it would be...
They're not here anymore.
Yeah, but it would just be interesting because we're still...
Well, that's great research, but that's really not the issues now.
Actually, we're still legally responsible for their education.
Yeah, we have to pay for, we pay for their education, so.
There's a name to Neil.
And I wasn't talking about challenging any individual school. This was more about catching an individual student that may not be caught by the school that they are attending that needs more help. And I understand it's logistically a nightmare. I would just want to know whether we were receiving that information.
And I think it would also be outside the purview of the board. You know, as our job is to be a conduit between school and family, not for, for the student to make sure that they are catching, being taught appropriately. Because that would be us as the board saying, well, if you have these 7 students in this cohort and they are underperforming, then we are indicting essentially the school for not performing well with our kids, and that is not the board's responsibility.
I very specifically said not the board, but our administration.
Okay.
Who are our education experts.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark. What else? Other questions?
I had one more, but I don't remember what it is now.
Okay, well, we'll circle back if you remember it. Hang on a second. Did I say, is there somebody else before Neil?
Me.
Oh, Laura, and then we'll go to
Neil.
Neil, thank you.
To Neil.
To Neil. Sorry, to Neil.
Just with the data that you displayed as school-wide, do you all have it class-wide?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and so, and it makes sense to me why we would not have it class-wide. So what would you say that there's a difference between what you see at the class, at the specific class, kind of gathering all of that up, and what we're seeing here? Are there things that the board should know that we wouldn't glean from looking at this data rolled up?
I think that was what I had reported out on, just the fluency piece being a concern, and that reading comprehension seems overall for Wardsboro pretty consistently good. It's just the fluency really brings those scores down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you would see, vocabulary is quite good, comprehension is quite good, but there are some pockets of fluency that are lower.
Staff, like for instance, would we not see staffing challenges that you may see with specific class data? We might not, but do you see those types of, do you have the resources that you need when you look at the class-specific data?
Yes, I think so.
Great, that's my question.
Do you agree with that? Yeah, I think so.
And each school meets with the teachers, after benchmark, all this information comes in. We meet with the teachers, we meet with Amanda's RAST, and we go through the information to see, what do we need to do with this? Who's needing help? Who do we need to excel? So there's a system that is followed for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Neil. Well, you don't have to back up. I don't think she can see you.
Hi. Sorry, my screen's not on. I'm in my car in the dark. But I just wanted to maybe suggest or ask about the question about how kids are doing in secondary schools. Like, is there a way to throw that back to the parents, like as in like a survey or some kind of information feedback? Like, I get that could be a lot for you guys to take on if it's that many different schools. And as somebody who, is hoping we continue to have a lot of schools to choose from, like, as a parent, that's something I would be willing, I have 2 kids that came from Wardsboro that went to 2 different middle schools, and I'm blessed enough to say that they both went in fully prepared for the schools that they were in, and the struggles that they didn't have anything to do with their academic readiness. So I was just curious if you could get that information back, maybe from the parents in some form.
We actually sent out a survey many years ago, and I think it was before you, Bill, wasn't it?
It has not happened since I.
And we got like 10 to 15% response.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't so that we could track anything. It was just so that we could, we could get some feedback as how we were preparing the students to move on. But we also used to do a school night. I forget what it was called, but we would ask the different schools that we would tuition to if they would like to come, and there'd be a night for the 5th and 6th graders to come in and meet somebody from Burton and from Leland and Gray and from all the different schools, so they could tell them, here's what we do, here's the kind of things that we excel at, here are the things that we're really proud of, and here's what our campus looks like.
We took advantage of that actually at the Dover school when our son was in either 5th or 6th grade, and it was honestly, it's the reason that we tried Leland and Gray is because what they had to offer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, they still do it, so I guess I didn't realize that. I thought it had been stopped a little bit before Matt got there, but I guess it still goes on. So hopefully that's something good.
For Natalie.
And it would be good if parents have feedback to let the administration know. You don't have to tell the board, but I think it would be good for Matt and Tammy to know that, boy, my child did excellent in the reading skills, but you know what, the foreign language was a little lacking or whatever, and I'm just making stuff up. But so there isn't and I would really, if that's something that parents feel would be helpful, we'd love to be able to facilitate that. I don't think anybody in the board would have a problem helping with that. So maybe that is something that parents can talk about, and if there's some interest, we can bring it up to the board, and we can maybe do some kind of survey towards the end of the year and ask people, if they want to contribute that, and we can just make the findings public.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Go, buddy.
So, as a parent who has seen results for our own students in the Ames Web Plus testing, how does this correlate to what parents see of their children's performance as far as readiness in that Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3?
I mean, we send home a pretty detailed report with report cards in January. That includes a really detailed specific student report. It does show comparison to the national norm group of kids their same age nationally, so they get that comparison. They don't get school or SU comparison.
You get more information as a parent than you received tonight from us.
Right, I'm just wondering how the tiers correlate to some of the scoring. So where that national average is.
So the 50,
in the percentiles and things like that.
Right, so 50th percentile or above would be the tier 1.
Tier 1.
And then I'm not sure what the breakdown is from there. Is it 50 to...
Well, it's a risk. It's a risk of not making grade level.
Yes, like under the 25th percentile would be considered Tier 3, Tier 2, because you're
so then the in
below the average range,
Tier 2, the 25 to 50.
Right? Is that correct?
Yeah, but it's important to remember it's a risk.
Right.
It's not a
percentile compared to a national.
It's not correct.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
not percentile.
It's to inform, it's to continue the conversation in a dedicated manner about the intensity and level of intervention and differentiation that is necessary for each individual child as they journey through the year.
Wow, are you reading that?
Did you say that again?
It's recorded.
But to your point, the individual parent report is much more comprehensive than this thing we've put together to kind of summarize the school. The purpose of the tool is not to summarize the school. That's probably why they don't have good school-wide reports. The purpose of the tool is to give teachers like really skill-specific data so that they can target deficit and really focus on that for a period of 6 or 8 weeks, and then either knock it off and move on to the next thing, or redo it, try a new tactic. So it's a little bit like square peg, round hole with this kind of school-wide data.
Sure.
That may be why they don't have great reports for it.
Is everybody good? Are you folks all set? TV land all set?
Yeah, I remembered my question, Rich.
Go ahead, Mark.
So speaking of square peg, round hole, and I realize this is not a local assessment question, but I was wondering whether there had been any additional information provided by the state in regards to the ability to translate
or compare SBAC to, and also I'm forgetting the name of the new assessment that they're using.
Cognitive.
Mark, with the new advent of Cognia, which is going to be the new SBAC, which followed NECAP, which followed in about every 7 to 10 years, there's a new assessment apparently. The state has said that they are going to delve into a possible crosswalk between an SBAC and a Cognia, but they are being very careful and I think very astute in saying it's a completely new assessment and a completely new environment, and so it should be treated as a benchmark assessment as the foundational starting point. And actually the timing makes complete sense. After the 3 years of disruption of the pandemic, this should be a base level year. This should be the base level year, have a new assessment, understand that you are still assessing the Common Core standards. So we're not changing what we're assessing, we're just changing the environment in what it is being assessed. So really I don't think there's going to be a lot of value in trying to do a crosswalk from an SBAC assessment that was done during a pandemic versus a first-year assessment of Cognia and treating that as the benchmark of which you will then be able to compare and have longitudinal data year after year.
There's just no looking back, which is, to me, a problem.
Well, we like to look forward, and we like to be optimistic about what we're doing moving forward, and we like to look at individual data through our local comprehensive assessment system, and as that rolls up to an assessment on a different thing, which is the assessment of the curriculum, that is done every day by our classroom teachers and our administrators. I feel very confident that we do not need to look back and to attempt a comparison on 2 different assessments during 3 highly disruptive years that are probably going to give you very, very bad data that will not allow you to make a trend association, and then you'd be looking back 5 years to even get something where you felt comfortable on. So I do believe it is the appropriate manner to start at the foundational level this year.
You all set, Mark?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thanks. Very good.
Thank you.
That's great.
Okay. Superintendent report was last.
Yeah, so I provided you a written superintendent report. I sent today to all of your board emails the mid-year education legislative update. It's really, really valuable. I really encourage you to take a look. The links are fantastic. The descriptions are, factual, not opinion-based. Where are things going? How are things happening? I just encourage you to read that. That's all I got. We're moving right along at 8 o'clock, and we got a lot left, so I want to make sure that I'm being very efficient, but I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Does anybody have any questions to the superintendent? Anything from his report? Okay, moving right along. Date for election of board members, discussion action. So Andrew, our district clerk, wanted to have the election the day before the school district meeting because we're all going to have to come into Wardsboro and count votes before the meeting. So we'll probably have a meeting just to count the votes.
Just like you did before.
Just like we did, yeah. The meeting that we didn't need. So April 24th, petitions are available. If you want to sign petitions, we have some people running that would ask for your signatures. And those petitions have to be in by, what's it date?
They need to be in to the Dover, to the town office by
On the bottom.
Monday, March 13th at 5 o'clock. Into the school district clerk.
So and you need 60 signatures.
From either town, Dover or Wardsboro.
They can be either Dover resident, Wardsboro resident. You can, and there'll be a petition. There'll be 2 positions elected this year. There'll be a position from Dover and a position from Wardsboro, Mark's position is up, and he's indicated he wants to run, and Kate's position up is Wardsboro. She's indicated she wants to run. And the election, I'm not sure the location where they're going to poll. I believe in Dover, Andy wants to do the town hall again, but we'll get that announced. And Wardsboro, I think they did it at the town office, correct?
No, town hall.
Town hall also. That's right, because the tables were set up downstairs.
Right.
So if there's any questions, comments, you guys all good with that announcement?
So you probably should just make a motion
Make a
for
motion.
the
Okay.
school district clerk that you will have the elections for those two positions on the 24th.
So moved.
Okay, so Laura moved the election for the office, for the school board for the River Valley's Unified School District be April 24th at the direction of the school district clerk. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Chad seconds it. Is there any discussion? Go ahead.
I just want to make sure that everyone knows you can also vote prior to that day.
Oh, yeah, there'll be
Right.
absentee ballots.
Just so everyone's aware of that.
And I'll get that at the next meeting.
Okay.
Because it's usually 20 days ahead of time. I think the ballot's available 24. Okay, if there's no other discussion, all those, oh, I'm sorry, Meredith, did you get that motion okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. No other discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Rich?
Oh, hang on.
Rich?
Go ahead, Mark.
Alan had his hand up a minute ago.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. My question got answered like 2 seconds after I put it up.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is a unanimous decision. I'll talk to Andy tomorrow, and for the next meeting, I'll get all the particulars for people. And we also going to want to put that in the town report, or in the school district report. Mark had brought up pre-K regions. Mark, do you want to, I think Bill has that in the package for us. Geographic regions, geographic limitations. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, he does, and I had it a second ago. I honestly don't remember why I asked about it, but I thought that it was something that was worth us looking at to keep a little bit more of our money in the area, but with all the changes or potential changes that are going to be made in pre-K legislation this session, I don't think that this is a discussion that's really worth having at this point. I think we should wait and see what, if anything, the legislature does.
Okay, since that was Mark's request, there is paperwork in there in the packets. If anybody wants a copy of it, we can get it to you. Meredith, can you just make sure that, or Bill, that it gets attached to the minutes, just so if people have interest? And if there is any interest from folks in looking into that further, we can bring it up at a later date.
Which document do you want to be attached?
Bill had sent out a document.
I'll send it to Meredith.
About the pre-K region. So Bill will send it to you, and you can just reference that in this topic.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Then the last thing is Senate Bill 66 and House Bill 258, bills for designating high school. Discussion. I didn't plan on having a big discussion about this, but just to make people aware that there are a couple House bills. There is a House bill and a bill in the Senate to change public funds to private schools. Bill sent out, I think, in the report you were talking about earlier. There's a really good kind of write-up about it. And I think there's the House is working on, isn't the House working on another Who is
House
it?
Education Committee has
Right.
drafted an additional bill. I asked for this to be on the agenda simply because we are a choice district, and I think it's important to just let the community know that these bills are being discussed. They exist in the legislature. Like you, I didn't expect like a town hall meeting discussion of those bills. It was just, I think it's important that we communicate to our constituents that these bills exist. They can contact their legislators if they are interested in greater detail. I know there are some community forums that are occurring. I encourage people to attend those. I just think it's going to be important for the board as these bills move throughout the legislative process. This is the beginning of a biennium. This could be a 20-month process. But I just think it's important for the board to just make sure that these are the bills, they're linked in the agenda, so everything that is posted and shared through our communications, people will have the ability to do that. And then if constituents have, particular questions for the board, we can, hear those questions and listen to our constituents. But I just thought that was important to just have that out there. But I wasn't expecting a community forum facilitated conversation.
Okay, and just so people know, just because a bill gets proposed doesn't mean it gets discussed. It's a very interesting how Montpelier works, and we need to pay attention. If the bill gets discussed in a committee, that's when it's a really important time to start thinking about responses if you want, and also if we want to respond as a board, we can have that discussion at that time. But when a bill's just introduced, it sits there. It actually sits on a wall until the chairman of that committee takes it off the wall and says, okay, let's have a discussion about this. And that is noticed, so we will be able to see it. What I don't understand, though, Laura, I'm going to ask you, this DR 23-0910, that's not it says it's on a draft committee bill. So
that's what the committee is actually doing.
So they don't take letters, testimony, or anything until the bill is drafted?
So people can follow along on that. The first draft of that bill was released 2 days ago, and crossover is in 1 week from when we get back.
And this talks of some of those issues too. So it's DR 23-0910. That would be really good for people to look at. I don't know if if the board, it was in the stuff Bill sent us.
So I just got that today. So,
right. Yeah. So you may want to read that. I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, can you just repeat the bill number, please?
Well, it's not a bill, is it?
No, it's draft 23-0910. And it's linked in the document that Bill sent out from the education.
With the board's permission, I will share with Meredith the entire education legislative report and have as an addendum to the minutes. And therefore, anybody will be able to look at anything.
Okay, so Meredith, he'll send that to you, and if anybody has some interest, but just read also read the DR, because that's a committee actually working on that to present it. But as Laura said too, crossovers in a week, so I don't know, and there's no legislature this week, so who knows what's happening. But there also could be still discussing it. So.
Rich?
Yeah.
So that draft bill's in the House. If anybody is interested, S219 from last session is very similar to that, and it was debated and passed in the Senate. So if anybody wants to go look at that testimony, if they're interested to see what the Senate side may be thinking, that's available.
I would just really caution people, though. Senate's changed a lot. House has changed a little bit, quite a bit. So remember, too, we're in a 2-year cycle. So anything that was proposed and passed 2 years ago may not be able to pass again this year. It's, I think, Senate Ed has the same chair, correct?
Yes. So what Marc is saying is this bill is similar to the one that he proposed last year,
Okay.
which is very similar, I think, to the State Board of Ed rules that we have right now against anti-discrimination.
Which was very interesting at the last state board meeting. So, any comments, thoughts on that? Yes.
Would it be appropriate, Laura, for you to talk about the bill as a sponsor of it? Or just, there may be people here who are unaware. I know they can go and look it up, but just to discuss what the basic tenets of the bills are.
I don't think it's appropriate here to ask a school board member to talk outside as a school board. I will defer to you.
So I'm happy to step down from the board and talk about the bill, but I'm holding community forums, and so I would look to the superintendent and the board chair to talk about how that's, I'm holding actually extremely well attended community forums and putting out a lot of information on my website. So
Just my opinion, I think it would be more appropriate to drive people to existing community forums, but to Dwight's point, if at a later point there would be a desire of the board to hear from, I would say this phrase, their local legislator,
yes,
then I think the board could make the request to the local legislator in writing. I would keep it very formal. We would like to invite you to a meeting in your role as a legislator to discuss, just like we talked about inviting the Burton person. So I think it's a very valid point. I just think we have to be very clear on the different roles, and we should also give people time to prepare for what the board might expect.
And my only comment would be there is no bill yet being discussed.
Well, there is a bill being discussed.
No, it's not being discussed. The bill, there's been a bill proposed. It's not being discussed by any committee. No committee's picked it up. So it's...
the draft bill that we talked about that does what was proposed last year is the bill that is being talked about. And the governor, the chair of the Senate committee, the pro tem of the Senate, have all said that they will not move those two bills. So
the two bills that have been proposed.
the two bills that were noted on the agenda,
right?
Not the bill that is actually being worked on, which is the draft 230910.
But the draft is not yet a bill.
Right.
It's a draft that they're working on, and again, they have less than a week really to do anything with that. So it may not even be discussed this year.
I just wanted to follow up on what Bill was saying too. As a representative of the school board, I would be interested to know what the people think, other than outside the forum in this venue, what their opinions are, so we as a board can know what their take is on it and how they feel about it.
So
it doesn't have to be today. It could be in a future meeting.
I would be very interested to know also, but again, we as a board don't vote on that bill.
No, but it's important that we understand how people who elected us feel.
Absolutely. So maybe I would suggest is that we just keep this on the agenda for the 20th for the board to hear, and then that way we can send out, when the agendas go out to the school community, we could say the board is placing this item on the agenda to hear from their constituents about these bills.
That's what I'm requesting.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
And then also, if the draft doesn't go anywhere, because we'll know it'll be crossover.
Right.
I mean, even if the draft doesn't go anywhere, I'd still be interested to know what people think.
Okay. What do you do with that?
It's important to know it's important for me to know what our constituents, their take is on for future bills that may come up. It's important to me. I think this board should be aware of, what their opinions are on these issues, just like any other issue.
It's just as the Vermont Principals Association has, put their backing behind certain elements in the past, it would be responsible for the board based on the, constituents' response to either back or not back legislation that impacts our community members.
And I think there are other boards that have taken positions on certain issues over time, including this one.
We can.
We can, but when at the right time.
When it's a bill.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Not at this time.
But what we're saying is not blindly, based on the 6 of us,
Yeah.
but with input from the community as well.
And-
the same as
and this
the reason
board
that
is
our
also
local
sure.
legislator is holding informational meetings, and I'm sure, absorbing information from the community as well, as much as she is.
And believe me, I'm good with listening to that, but my question is, what is the goal for it? Why are we doing that?
It's the
Because
same
we're
as the
not
goal
going
is
to.
collecting data from another school to find out, data set to just absorb information and making more informed decisions.
Okay, so
being a conduit between community and schools, that's our job.
Okay.
Rich?
Yes, Mark.
So this is a lightning rod topic, and I don't think that we should put the board or community through it until there is an actual bill that is being worked on and discussed. Right now, there isn't, and we don't know at crossover whether there will be anything. And if it doesn't make crossover, nothing's happening for at least a year, or roughly a year.
So I guess then maybe if I could settle this, I think I got a response. My question wasn't to argue with you about it. My question was to try to figure out what you were trying to accomplish. So I think the school board could definitely sponsor a forum about it if you would like to. And I think that may be
Sure, that'd be great.
then maybe that's what we should do is we could ask our local legislator to come to a school board meeting to speak about it.
That's what I thought we had said.
Well, I know,
With
but
the community
I didn't know, but again, I thought we were going to wait until there was an actual bill that was going to be debated, discussed, and acted upon. Because, so
But also, given that our local legislator is a member of the House Education Committee,
No, I am not.
you're not. I thought you were.
No.
Misunderstood.
Yeah. So we could ask if you wanted to, though. There is this DR bill. They're working on a bill, a draft bill. We can find out who's on House Ed and see if maybe they can, because now that we have this great way of joining virtually, maybe we could invite them to come and talk to us about what they're drafting. No?
So, hearing all of you, could I suggest that we just have an agenda item for March 20th to discuss what we would like as a board to do, because we will know that crossover has happened. We will know what is moving forward, what is not, to inform the discussion of the board of do we as a board want to invite people to come and talk? Do we as a board want to sponsor a community forum? Do we as the board just want to make sure that we are letting our constituents know that we are going to have a block of time and we want to hear from you? I think we should do this in a very transparent, thoughtful way, and I think that it would be a great idea to do that on the 20th, because we'll have more information. We'll hear from all the board members. We'll hear from our constituents, and then we can decide what thing the board would like to do going forward, or multiple things.
Cool. Everybody good with that?
Yeah, I'm good. I don't really agree with Mark in terms of we have to wait till it becomes a bill, like you're saying. Sometimes these things happen organically, and if the opinions are known ahead of time, then the bill could die before it even gets there or move forward because people love it so much. So waiting until it's already at that point, I'm not saying it's too late, but I think to be involved in the process from the beginning is a better approach sometimes to these things.
Okay. You all set, Chad?
Yes, thank you.
Mark, you all good?
I was just going to say, once you have a bill, you know what to actually discuss. Until there's a bill, you don't know what the legislature is talking about doing.
So I think Bill's thought idea to bring, just to kind of track it.
Let's leave a block of time.
Right. We've always had kind of like future meeting things that we leave in the agenda, like transportation, that it's been there. We haven't done anything with it for the last 6 or 8 meetings, but it's there to keep it in the forefront, keep it in our mind. And I think that's all we need to do if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah, I agree with what Bill said. I was responding to what Dwight said.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a different opinion there.
Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I would just note, Bill, that I'm aware that the local legislator that represents this district has had a number of community forums, and one of the things that has emerged from that is a desire from people to have an understanding of the legal situation that is generating this conversation, and I believe that legislator was working to bring in a legal expert. So you might want to ask this district's legislator maybe to work with the board to bring together a number of those things in one meeting. That might be an option to consider.
And those are the kinds of thoughts that I think would be fantastic to be discussed on March 20th.
To talk about what to do on the 20th.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay. You beat that horse?
Let's put the saddle on. It's a nice horse.
We tamed that one. Giddy up. Folks, I see people are getting ready to leave. Do you have anything else before you guys leave for new business?
It's actually chilly.
Pardon?
I'm getting cold.
Oh.
Wasn't trying to be rude.
I just want to make sure that we. I want to make sure that we get. We appreciate people coming to the meeting and participating, and we just don't want to make you feel excluded. So, we got new business. Matt, Tammy, all good? Bill, you set?
I am.
Galen, you all set? Yeah, you got to speak. Chad, new business?
No new business for me. Thank you.
Sir?
No, thanks.
Laura?
Good to go.
Mark, you any new business?
Nope, don't think so.
Oh, hang on. Laura's got one. Nope. Yes, nope. Yeah, maybe. Hang on.
Do we have any working committee on renewables?
No.
Still? I can't believe I'm asking.
No, but Chad is going to help me with the solar. So real quick, on the solar, Bill, I was going to ask Lori, but we got running late. I need on the solar, we need to see where we're at with, are we not making sure we're not losing any credits, because the fire district wants to get rid of some credits, and I'd like to take them for us if we can make sure we use them. So what I was hoping, Chad, is John Priel that we met with from the fire district, they had an intern that did a study, and that's how they decided they need how much credit that to maximize the savings. So he's trying to contact that gentleman to see if he would do it for us. If not, Bill, I'm going to have to really push your office, your financial office, to review the numbers. And I thought it would be good if Chad got involved in that, because he's shown a lot of interest in that.
And we also need the bills, too, historically.
Yeah, but you can get them pretty easily with our account numbers. So can we make sure for the next meeting on the 20th that we have a discussion about, and Lori should be pretty much done with budgets, right? All your other budgets are done, correct?
Wyndham is the last one.
Okay. So just if we can note that for new business. Laura, is that you're all set?
I'm all set.
Anybody else in TV land? Okay. Consent agenda, the minutes of the February 6th, 21st, and 28th to approve. Mark, I know you had a concern about one of the set of minutes, but I think that was covered earlier.
Yeah, I think that was prior. And while I'm not going to ask you to take the 28th out, I just do want to note it that I was not there. So if we were voting on it, I'd be abstaining.
I thought I didn't put you down, did I? Oh, the 28th?
No. I was just saying, if we were to vote on it, I would abstain because I was not there.
Nobody was there. Meeting of none.
Yeah.
I had a good time there. Okay, so if everybody's good, we'll move on to, I have no correspondence, Bill?
No.
Okay, I have 2 executive session items.
I have a question with the correspondence.
Yes.
I thought we did receive a correspondence last week.
Executive
Is that going to executive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, thank you, everybody. Can I get there's an executive session motion, Bill. I need you to also to come up with the wording for the personnel one. Thank you. So the first one is, this is per contract negotiation. Can somebody make the first motion for us, please?
I would love to move to that. I move to find the premature general public knowledge regarding contract negotiation would put the board at substantial disadvantage because the school board is at risk of negotiation disadvantage if discussed in public.
Do I have a second to that?
Second.
I'll give it to Chad. We'll make it a Wardsboro-centric motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 It appears to be a unanimous decision. It is.
I would like to also make a motion for the board to enter executive session under Title I, Section 313 of the Vermont Statutes Legal Consultation 313A1.
Good Lord.
Second.
Okay, Kate made the motion, Laura seconded it. Meredith, you should have this all in the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meredith, we're going to kick, it appears to be unanimous. It is a unanimous decision. Hey, Meredith? Hello?
Yes.
So we have to also record, we're supposed to record the time we go out of executive session and the time we come into executive, we go in and then come out. So we came out at whatever time it is on the computer, and we had two contractual issues. One involved negotiations, and we have Mark and Dwight have volunteered to assist in negotiations to cover for each other if one can't make it, and we will be sending off to the staff a reply to their original proposal. And the second contractual issue, there was no decisions made, or not. We don't make decisions, but there was no action required. Are you good with that?
Yeah, so Mark and Dwight will be working on negotiations for the first issue, and then there was no action required
We'll
for the second
assist
issue.
with negotiations.
I'm sorry, I missed you.
We'll
Went out for a second. What?
We'll assist with negotiations.
Assist, okay.
And then on the second contractual issue, there was no action taken, no action required.
Great.
Okay. Next meeting is March 20th.
6 p.m.
At the Dover Elementary School. Bill, we won't have you, but you're going to make sure we have those arrangements made.
I will keep the board well informed.
Okay. What?
No, I can probably do that.
Okay. If there's no other discussion.
I would love to make a motion to adjourn at 8:42 p.m.
Do we have a second? Laura? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, folks.